Everyone, and welcome back to Auto Wisdom. Today I have the pleasure of sitting behind the wheel of a 2018 Tesla Model 3 Performance. This is an interesting car because Tesla recently unveiled and has rolled out the production of the Highland Model 3, which is the refreshed and facelifted V2, if you will, of the Tesla Model 3, which is one of the most popular electric EVs in the world. Now, what does this mean for the original Model 3 Performance? Is this car irrelevant? Is it obsolete? Has it been left in the dust by its successor? Well, that's what we're here to find out today. But before we get into a quick drive, let's go into a little bit of a technical overview that covers some of what this car has to offer. So the Performance model includes a dual motor setup with all-wheel drive, upgraded big brakes at the front axle, 20-inch performance wheels, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, and a 245 squared configuration, a carbon fiber rear lip spoiler, and metal pedals for the actual driver. The performance mode is actually indicated by a red line that sits underneath the dual motor badge, and that's how you could distinguish these cars back in the day from just a regular non-performance dual motor. Initially, the car rolled off the line with 450 horsepower and 471 pound-feet of torque from an 80.5 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. But in mid-2019, there was an over-the-air software update that Tesla rolled out that actually boosted the car's overall power output by 5% on all performance models. Now, all that power is delivered through a one-speed direct drive gearbox, and we also have a double wishbone suspension at the front axle with an independent multi-link setup at the rear. And the Model 3 Performance actually sits about 5 to 10 millimeters lower than the standard car, yet the spring rate and damping is actually shared with the standard car, but the Performance will engage the bump stops earlier to help maintain ride quality at the lower height. This car also has the Track Mode V2 software, which activates the cooling fans earlier to manage battery temperatures for both pre and post track driving, and it will also increase the refrigerant system capacity by overclocking the AC compressor to cool the powertrain off if you want to activate that. The Track Mode also adds torque vectoring by brake to improve spirited or track driving performance. It adds the in-house calibrated vehicle dynamics controller, which can also adjust the torque bias that is sent between the front and rear electric motors to address both understeer and oversteer. And finally, you can also adjust how much stability intervention the driver wants from the stability control system as well. So if you want to get this thing sideways, you very well can. Finally, all of this tech amounts to a curb weight of approximately 4,060 pounds, which is nothing light by any means, but I guess by today's standards, with cars incorporating hybrid systems and the popularity of EVs, that's not insanely heavy. Are we going to feel the weight when we drive this car? Well, with all that technical talk out of the way, let's go ahead and get out on the road and take this thing for a drive. So currently have the car in the race preset. Let's go ahead and just give it a quick launch and see how she do. Wow, that is quick. And there's 0 to 60 just like that, under 4 seconds, with a good launch, probably around 3.5 seconds with the original Model 3 Performance, and 470 horsepower and 460 plus pound-feet of torque is nothing to sneeze at in any car. But then when you translate that to EV power, where you have instantaneous electric motor response, zero drivetrain lag, minimal drivetrain loss, no gearbox to manage gear shifting or an engine that has to produce peak power or peak torque, it is really a different, almost mind-boggling experience of how fast this car is. And even for a Model 3 Performance that was rolled out in 2018, it is very, very impressive with how quick it is. And I mean, it pretty much offers supercar levels of acceleration up to probably about 80 miles an hour before you start to feel the motors dropping off a bit. But for just getting around in a day-to-day fashion, and for just, putting around in a city or in an urban environment, even on a track, honestly, this car has plenty of performance that is impressively quick. The steering feel is quite dead, to be honest. It doesn't really offer a whole lot in terms of feedback, although you can adjust the weight, and it feels relatively direct, which I like. It's quick, it's sharp, but there's really not much that's being translated from the road to the wheel itself. And from a driver engagement standpoint, that is something that does leave a little bit to be desired. But that acceleration is just so ludicrously, no pun intended, quick, that it almost makes you forgive some of the other flaws that this car has. The driving experience is relatively numb. It doesn't offer a whole lot in the way of overall engagement, but it makes up for it with sheer acceleration and speed. From a driving position standpoint, this car has excellent visibility. I really like the integration of this tablet in the center stack, which is not something that I would typically be fond of in a lot of cars, but Tesla has integrated it really well with a very clean infotainment graphical system that's very easy to navigate. Although I do wish that the tablet itself could pivot a little bit, or just you could adjust the angle of it to cater towards the driver a little bit more so that it would be easier to access and see. But as a result of this tablet system, what they've been able to do is lower the dashboard significantly, which improves your visibility. It's almost fishbowl-like in the sense that I can see in front of me so incredibly well, and I have this very clean panoramic sense of, outward view of the car, which not only helps to aid with just driver confidence, but it just allows such great visibility. And when I'm driving this car on a day-to-day basis, if I'm in dense traffic on the freeway or in the city, or if I'm trying to park in a narrow area, it just makes those experiences less burdensome and less stressful. Seating position is okay. I do wish I could sit a little bit lower, and I definitely feel like these seats could use more bolstering. They're very comfy, they're very plush, and I do like the color and the actual feeling of the leather itself, but I most definitely wish that they offered more in the way of bolstering, because with how much power this car can put down to the ground, and if you're going to be doing a lot of, intense lateral movements on a track, or, even taking this car through some back roads, you're going to want more bolstering out of these seats. But let's talk about that suspension. So the double wishbone up front with the multi-link setup is pretty good. And it's just incredible how well this car masks its curb weight. It really doesn't feel like 4,000 pounds. It feels very similar to the weight and the handling dynamics of something like a BMW M3, which is a huge compliment because of how well the suspension is able to not only stabilize the car, but also really effectively put the power to the ground and just aid with the overall handling. Body roll is existent to some degree, and the dampers are not the firmest. I've definitely driven cars such as the GLA 45 that I recently reviewed that had a much firmer overall, suspension. But for what it is, it's impressive how Tesla can almost layer software over the hardware of the vehicle to improve the handling dynamics with the assistance of the VDC and all the other electronic systems tying the driving experience together, outputting torque between the front and rear motors with the brake vectoring as well. You really just get such a smooth driving experience, and it's incredible how much the software can actually mask the flaws of the overall driving dynamics of this vehicle and can tailor the car's handling characteristics to any type of driving situation. Wow, it's so fast. It's almost like you get back into an internal combustion engine vehicle, even like a gas-powered sports car, and it, dare I say, feels lazy in comparison. I mean, it's a completely different experience, and it is lacking in terms of sound. It is lacking in terms of that, overall driver engagement and excitement that you would get with immense induction and exhaust noises. But the trade-off is just such insane performance that nowadays we take for granted. But if you were to go back just a decade ago, honestly, I mean, this is stuff that you'd have to be paying $250,000 plus to get this type of performance out of a supercar, honestly. And even then, it's not on the same level simply due to this instantaneous response that these electric motors provide. Impressively enough, for a car that was built in 2018 with this original, or OG for lack of a better term, Model 3 performance, it really offers a lot, and it still does feel relevant to some degree. But I can't help but feel that this car is somewhat obsolete at the same time. Tesla's EVs in general seem to have this theme of software and technology first and then a car after. The fatal flaw of these cars is that because they are so technologically driven and the software is so important to the overall driving experience, it makes these cars obsolete even faster to some degree. And what I mean by that is if you look at the progression of EV technology, battery technology, electric motor technology, and just the overall EV infrastructure, this car already does feel kind of old, especially now that the new facelifted Model 3 is out. And that is sort of a problem that I have with these cars, is that they just feel like they're aging so much faster than a conventional ICE car. And you also see that with the depreciation and overall value of EVs. And they just feel more disposable. Not to mention, the overall build quality of this Model 3 leaves a lot to be desired. Overall, it's a nice car, both from an exterior and interior standpoint, but when you really look closely at some of the panel gaps, some of these interior trim pieces, and you start to really dissect some of these like injection molded plastics and gloss black materials that were used in the interior of the car, it really starts to cheapen the overall experience. And it's something that I really think Tesla needs to invest more in terms of upping the build quality. And supposedly that has been resolved with the newer models. Finally, let's talk about overall pricing. These cars can be picked up now used for around $23,000 to $26,000. These cars do provide a significant amount of value that I think a lot of people will really be able to appreciate with these types of cars. Is the Model 3 performance worth it at around 25 grand? The answer from me is a yes. The fact that you don't have to worry about gas costs, relatively minimal maintenance, and supreme performance on the road that'll basically take a dump on most cars in the street is something that is awesome and just really doesn't get old when you punch the accelerator on this thing. With all that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video on the OG Model 3 Performance, a car I've been wanting to drive for some time. Hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on the new Model 3 Performance relatively soon, and I can provide you with some updated feedback and comparisons. With all that being said, if you did enjoy the review, please go ahead and leave a thumbs up on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel down below. I'll catch you all in the next one. Take it easy, my friends. Bye-bye.